A very good morning to all of you. Welcome to today's news analysis. We are doing the Indian Express papers Chandigarh edition. The topics that are being covered today are mentioned over here. Besides, I have made some short comments which will guide you as to how we should be preparing those topics. Now, the first news that we are covering is the Women's Reservation Bill. This is the first bill that is introduced in the new building. And this is titled as Nari Shakti Vandan Adhiniyam. Nari Shakti means woman power, right? And Adhiniyam means bill or act. Okay. Now, what some basic information that we have from this news, whatever we have on the Women's Reservation Bill. So that is, there will be 33% quota for women in SC and ST seats too. So this means that there is horizontal reservation for women cutting across the vertical categories of general, SC and ST. Right. So vertical reservations are like this: general category separate, SC separate, ST separate, while women reservation runs across all three communities. So 33% of general, 33% of SC, ST shall be women. So this is the first point. Second, we get to know that the seats will be reserved on rotational basis, as happens with the SC. So this means that let's say a particular constituency, this is now reserved for women. So after a period of time, this will not be reserved. It will be anybody can contest, and any other constituency may be reserved. So that cycle will keep going on or rotational basis. So presently this happens for SC, scheduled caste populations. Next, there shall be a 15-year period for which the reservation is there. Right after that, they will reassess. So these are the three main pointers that we get. Now, if we want to introduce reservation for women, obviously a lot of things have to be done. A lot of constitutional processes would be there. An amendment to the constitution would be made. In fact, this will be 128th constitutional amendment if it happens. Okay. Now for this, a lot of process would be there, right? It's an amendment to the constitution. So according to Article 368, there is a special process of making this law. So 2/3 majority of those present and voting in Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha is required. Besides absolute majority or majority of the total membership. So that condition has to be fulfilled. Now, since this is a federal matter where parliamentary seats as well as reservation is provided in the state legislatures, so more than half of the state legislative assemblies have to ratify this law. Okay, so that's it. So this is a challenging process. It is time taking. It requires political consensus. So yes. Next, for this, if we have to define constituencies and we have to say that these constituencies are reserved for women, we have to have data. We have to come up with the census. In fact, census 2011 data is only available. The latest census we do not know. So that is an issue. Besides, delimitation exercise has to be done. Delimitation means defining the borders of the constituency. Delimit itself means defining the borders. So delimitation exercise has to be done. Now the constitution's Article 82 and 170, 82 for the parliamentary seats, 170 for the seats to the state legislative assemblies or state legislatures. So these provide for creation of delimitation commission. So according to this, Parliament shall enact a law to provide for delimitation. And that this is also true for states. Okay. Now next, Congress shifts its stand on bill, joins Samajwadi Party RJD in asking for OBC quota. So as of now, they are only talking about reservation of women within the existing categories. this Samajwadi Party, RJD, and JDU, these parties previously said that we want reservation for women, but we want reservation for women from the OBC category. Fine, OBC category. Now the issue arose was, like, this bill is very old, so this issue back then arose was that we do not have a special category for OBC. We have reservations only for scheduled caste and scheduled tribe. Scheduled tribe also when there is, of course, population for that. So now having a specific reservation for women from OBC category, that would mean that we have to create reservation for OBC category. So therefore, this did not come through. Now Congress has aligned with this viewpoint. Maybe for its political thing, they're part of the India Alliance. So again, a lot of challenges are there, and if this demand has to be go through, then we have to create a new category for the OBC's reservation over here. So yes, now let's come to the exam point of view. So I've written over here, this is important for mains, and I'm saying that we can expect a contextual question. I don't feel that we will be asked a very direct question on the women's bill or the women's reservation bill, the provisions of this. But we can get a contextual question. The reason is that mains exam has already happened. This was a very current topic, but mains exam has already happened. So now we can expect maybe a contextual issue. For example, why women's reservation bill is being introduced. Obviously, this is because of some discrimination or some biases, some obstacles that women face while entering into political fray. So those lines may be looked into. Then the other thing could be, what are the perceived benefits of having more women in more representation of women in politics or women in leadership. So those things are there. Then of course we can always talk about the possible challenges of the women's reservation bill, right? So challenges arising by representation and our learnings from the Panchayati Raj institutions where 1/3 reservation is already given, at least 1/3 is given. Sarpanch, Pati, and all those things are there. Okay, now India, Canada. And here I feel it can be a very direct, there is a controversy erupting between the two countries, India and Canada, over the Khalistan issue. And I think we can expect a very, very direct question in mains. Now, obviously, we have a year-long pipeline for this. Okay, now very quickly, we're covering this issue, although this is again a women's reservation bill and this one is scattered across the newspaper. So it's very simple. So India and Canada has been having friction between the two, right? There is a lot of tensions between the two, especially over the issue of Khalistan. Canada has a lot of Punjabi diaspora and many of them are sympathetic to the Khalistani cause. India is not comfortable with this naturally. Okay. Now what happened most recently, Hardeep Singh Nijjar, a Canadian citizen who was pro-Khalistani, he was killed. It is alleged that he was murdered, and Canadian side is saying that the top diplomat from India has played a role in that. He was probably from the intelligence. So maybe they have some evidence also to back this. Indian side is saying this is absurd. So they sent back this envoy, and Indian side also, what they did was the Canadian representative who was there, he was also sent back. In fact, there is a Twitter footage which shows that he comes to the office and within 5 minutes he's going back. Okay, so this is a very, very serious issue, serious tension between the two countries who otherwise had very cordial relationship. Okay, so there is a very big escalation that has taken place. Now, in subsequent articles, we would cover India's interest with respect to the Canada, right? We have our diaspora, we have trade interests. We want cooperation in multilateral forums. So a lot of things are there. We are not yet a member of the NSG group. For that, we would need the support of Canada. For nuclear fuels, we would require the support. So a lot of things are there for which we need their support. Okay, next article. WHO red flag, only 37% Indians with high BP diagnosed, 30% get treatment. So this covers health, this covers your society, also some of the issues. Okay, so let's quickly cover this. This is something that requires attention also. So hypertension, high BP. High BP is leading to the blood vessels getting damaged. And the WHO saying that if this thing was diagnosed and if corrective changes to the lifestyle was made and if medication was given, then in that case, 4.6 million deaths can be prevented by 2040. 4.6 million deaths, 46 lakh people. Okay. Now, natural thing is to, what is the government doing about it? That's a natural question. So we have something known as India Hypertension Control Initiative. So this is a government initiative to screen people and put them on hypertension treatment at their local health centers. Screen them and give them treatment. So that is one thing. Second thing is, obviously we need doctors and we need medications. So that also has to be provided for. And hypertension, of course, we know heart diseases, it affects the blood vessels, organs of the body. So those are the issues. It will not be a bad idea to prepare a short note on this, 150 words. Do not really expect it, but it is always good to be prepared. It won't take much effort because all the pointers are given over there. So see, a lot of this Canada thing is there, right? So we really don't have to go deep into it. This is again an interview here that only 2% of Canadians are Sikhs, and of them some are pro-Khalistani. So I was interested in this article, Canada's Evidence and its Five Eyes Alliance. Okay. So yeah, so basically what is the challenge over here from India's challenge? Canada's evidence, whatever evidence they have, there has to be some basis on which PM is saying, PM of Canada is raising such allegations. Okay, and Canada is part of the Five Eyes Alliance. Five Eyes Alliance is an intelligence-based alliance in which the US, UK, Canada, New Zealand, and Australia are part of, and in which they are supposed to share intelligence gatherings. Right. So if something happens over here, these countries should also require to collaborate. So this would pose challenge before India. And bad relations with Canada may imply bad relations with these countries in future. As of now, these countries have responded to this controversy, but they have given a very measured response, very checked response, so as to not offend any of the stakeholders, be it Canada, be it India. So here the responses are given. Okay. Now, what are India's concerns? So one is, of course, Khalistan issue is done. Now, India's concern is that we have a significant amount of diaspora, significant amount of Indians that have gone to Canada. So people of Indian origin account for 3% of the population, but they are 16 lakh people. Okay. Next, a lot of our foreign students, students from India go there to study and probably settle also. So foreign students, and these people get revenue out of India. Okay. Then trade is not very significant. It is only $11.68 billion. In fact, much needs to be done on this regard. Next, agricultural trade. Interestingly, Canada is supplying us pulses, and of the imports of pulses, 30% of this comes from Canada. So when we are having this pulse shortage, when the pulses prices are going up, so we import so that we have more supply within India. So 30% of this is coming from Canada. Then Canada obviously is capital surplus country. So their pension funds have invested $55 billion in India. So this capital is, of course, very, very important for the sanctity of our markets. right? So this capital is very much required. So $55 billion is coming from there. Okay, so yes, so I've covered this Five Eyes Alliance earlier. Okay, so these are the basic issues over here that needs to be looked into. And obviously, we can also talk about this NSG membership. We need the support of Canada, nuclear cooperation, permanent seat in the United Nations Security Council. So there again, we need their support. Right, so there are a lot of things for which we need Canada's support, and we really cannot afford bad ties with any of the countries for that matter, including Canada. Okay. This is part of muscular nationalism, the stance that the Indian side especially Indian side is taking. So that has been reflected in the opinions as muscular nationalism. Now we come to the editorial page, editorial and opinion section. So one is on the Women's Reservation Bill. So this article is basically telling us about the history that the Women's Reservation Bill is in talks since the last 27 years. We should go through with this bill. It is much required, right? So that is the main focus of this article. But at the same time, there may be certain challenges. For example, the practice of Sarpanch Pati. So that Sarpanch Pati. So that has been mentioned. Again, Canada issue is mentioned. PM Trudeau is playing to Sikh diaspora's extremist fringe. India-Canada diplomatic escalations needs urgent resolution. Same points, it's the same thing that is getting repeated. A more welcoming house for the women. So that's us talking about the Women's Reservation Bill. I was hoping to get more. I did not. So please refer to those articles that I shared yesterday on the Telegram. That will be much better. Now we come to the next article, and this is very important. This is about the recently proposed India, Middle East, Europe corridor. And please read this line. This is very interesting. India, Middle East, Europe corridor underlines a crucial geopolitical shift. Comment. GS2. Right. So this statement we need to analyze. And but for this, we need to know what is this India, Middle East, Europe corridor. So this India, Middle East, Europe corridor is basically a proposed connectivity initiative which will be linking India, that is a part of Asia, the Middle East, and Europe. So connectivity projects will be there, and whenever this connectivity projects are there, rail, road, shipping, so that connectivity is there. Besides this, in the vicinity, there is always a scope for creation of infrastructure in terms of industries, digital infrastructure. So those things are also there. So this gives a boost and impetus to the economy as well. And when these countries are economically, when they're connected, it will obviously pave way for economic integration. Economic integration normally paves way for political cooperation as well. So that is very, very important. And one more thing, that this region that we are passing through is politically unstable. There are these wars, tensions that goes on. So if this goes through, if it is successful, it will be good for the security of this region. Okay, so this is the corridor. Now this corridor can be linked with the existing work in progress north-south transport corridor, connecting maybe this like this it is going on. So this may be part of this north-south transport corridor. Then we have another agreement known as Ashgabat Agreement, which is a regional connectivity initiative. So it can be linked with these also. Okay, now let us go through these points that I mentioned. So first of all, it will pave way for connectivity It will connect Arabian Gulf via the sea lanes of communication to northern route linking Saudi Arabia, Europe, etc. through Jordan and Israel. Okay, this block is significant. It will comprise of 40% of the world's GDP. So this is very important. Besides, such an arrangement linking Europe to Asia, obviously Eurasia is part of Europe and Europe and Asia. So it is creation of a supercontinent known as Eurasia, broader Eurasian supercontinent, whose whose cooperation may go beyond trade. So trade, of course, we're talking about trade, energy, and digital resilience. So these things we're talking about, but it goes beyond this. Now, by beyond, I only understand political, right? Political factors, geopolitical stability, cooperation. So those things can come in. We can also look at tensions between Israel and Saudi Arabia. So if Israel is part of this grouping, so it will automatically lead to normalization of ties between the two. So it goes beyond this, beyond the trade aspects or economic aspects. Yes. So yes, it will also provide for dealing with the security challenges. If economic growth is taking place in that region, there will be creation of jobs, employment. So economic stability may result in political stability as well. So normally those areas are politically prone. Instability is there where there is a demographic dividend, more youthful population, but lack of job avenues. Now that issue may be addressed. Okay, now coming to the next part, India, Middle East, European Europe corridor underlines a crucial geopolitical shift. What is this geopolitical shift? This we can understand from the lines given over here. So basic thing is that previously in the first, the trade has been going on between these two, Euro, US, and Europe. On map also it is like this only, and there's this Atlantic Ocean. So the focus has been these two. But now the focus is moving towards the east. So this is a crucial geopolitical shift. The east is emerging as a major power center. We are moving towards a multipolar world. And multipolar world means there is not one center of power or two centers of power. In the Cold War period, we have two centers of power, that was US and USSR. Post Cold War, it was a unipolar world where only US emerged. This period is also known as US ascendancy. Now we are obviously in the post Cold War world, which was a unipolar world, but now we are seeing emergence of more powers. For example, US is already there, but China is emerging. India is emerging within Asia, right? So India is there, Russia is there. So there are not one country which is having all the power, but it's being multipolar. Saudi is there, so regionally speaking, so there are multiple power centers. So we are at this phase. We are in the last phase of the US ascendancy. So this is, I am taking this from this lecture by Antony Blinken, who is the defense secretary, sometimes NSA also, for the US. So it is a test of the post-Cold War order. It's the end of it. It's the end of this post-Cold War order. Okay. Fine. So we're seeing the East and East also multipolar world. So the focus is moving towards the eastern side of things. So this is a crucial geopolitical shift. So that is one point only. Obviously, on answer, we have to write more points. The main point is this only, but more points we have to write. Second, we can say is that USA is attempting at this. US is keenly looking at this initiative. And here, please note, US is nowhere. Geographically speaking, US is nowhere, but US is very much interested. So one reason could be normalized ties with Israel and Saudi Arabia. So during the presidency of Biden and previously also during the Trump era, efforts were made to normalize the Arab and Israel relationship. These are both arch rivals. But with this corridor, of course, Israel's fortunes are linked with Saudi Arabia. Both have to talk, both have to normalize their relations for this project to go through. If you look at the map over here, Israel is somewhere over here. So this corridor will pass through this region. So that is it. And previously, what efforts have been made? For example, during the Trump time, Abraham Accords, which was asked in the mains, Abraham Accords, then we have the I2U2 initiative during the time of Biden. So these two are there. India, Israel, UAE, US. So that's start of normalization of relations between Arab bloc and the Israel. So that is there. So so first is move towards the east, creation of the multipolar order. Second is Israel Saudi relations. Focus is on political stability in this region. So that is the one thing. US is very much interested in this arrangement over here. In fact, in today's newspaper, we have again one more article where Saudi and US is signing a defense treaty. There is a proposal of a defense treaty, which is aimed at probably US providing shelter to Saudi in case of a political tension, and this will ease tensions between Israel and Saudi Arabia. So this is mentioned in the international section. Okay, so these two, and the last point. If you note, Russia and China did not attend the G20. Probably this was the reason. The leaders did not attend. So probably this was one of the reasons that US wanted to prevent the coalition of states like China, Russia, Iran from dominating the supercontinent, that is Eurasia. So these two were not there, so they came up with this arrangement. Probably this was to take place, and thereby these countries were not there. So the US wants to consolidate the countries which are not in good books of USA. Fine. So these are the pointers. So one is about the benefits, then the geopolitical aspect, geopolitical shift. So from geopolitical perspective, we can look at it. So this, and of course, last point, of course, can be the challenges. So here only security challenges are mentioned, security tensions are mentioned. These things will require a lot of capital. Right, sustained capital requirement is there. Israel-Saudi tensions are of course a sore point, so that is also a tension, that is a challenge that needs to be addressed. So yeah, Saudi Arabia is good friends with China, so this cannot be really seen as a counter to the Belt and Road Initiative, even though one of the attempts would be to see this as a counter to BRI. But Saudi Arabia will have to balance the relationship with China. Okay, international page now. Azerbaijan launches military operation in Nagorno-Karabakh region. Okay, yes, here it is, Nagorno-Karabakh region. So I have seen a lot of questions in the prelims MCQ type that Nagorno-Karabakh region is associated with which of the following countries or regions. So such questions I have seen. So let us do this with the help of a map. Okay. So fine. So this is the map. So this is yeah. So you can see Azerbaijan, and this is Armenia, and this is the Nagorno-Karabakh region. So here Azerbaijan has put in a military attack. Now Nagorno-Karabakh region actually is internationally claimed by Azerbaijan. It is recognized to be part of Azerbaijan. Fine. But there was a political uprising over there, and with the help of Armenia, this region has claimed independence of sorts. Even though it is still world order, globally, Azerbaijan is recognized as the master of this region. So this is independently being ruled, and it is an unrecognized Republic of Artsakh, which is supported by Armenia. Fine, Armenia over here. And to the north, you can see Russia and Georgia are there. So now Azerbaijan has launched a military offensive in this region. This has happened when some Azerbaijan soldiers were killed via landmines. Okay. Now, what we get to know is that Russia or Moscow has put in some peacekeeping force to maintain stability in this region. And it is a long standing dispute running through the decades. And even 3-4 years back, also, there was a military operation going on in this region. Now, the peace previously came through the Minsk Group Agreement, OSCE Minsk Group Agreement. So this is the Minsk Group, which is a conference on security and cooperation in Europe. By the way, Minsk is the capital of Belarus. And I also refer to the US point of view on this. So it says that Moscow on purpose wants tension in this region so that Russia remains relevant in the political matters of these two countries. And one more thing that you need to study for this is the Bishkek Protocol. So Bishkek Protocol is Bishkek, capital of Kyrgyzstan. So Bishkek Protocol provided for the previous ceasefire agreement. That is, fighting was stopped based on the Bishkek Protocol. Ukraine missile fell. It is believed that it may have been Ukraine's own missile. US and Saudi in talks for defense treaty modeled after Asian pacts. So something like US has alliance with South Korea or Japan. So something like that maybe US may be considering something like that with Saudi Arabia. So what we understand with this is that nothing more is elaborated, but what we understand is that US does have a umbrella protection that in case China or North Korea attacks, so in that case US will provide them shelter. So something like that, some arrangement would be there with Saudi Arabia. So in case Iran attacks or in case Israel attacks, so in that US will provide shelter. And with this guarantee, probably Saudi has, US may push Saudi to have talks and engagements to normalize their relations with Israel, which is a Jew state. Saudi is an Arab Muslim state. Asian countries holds naval drills near the South China Sea region. So this may be read in lines with the 9-line controversy. Economy section. Bima Sugam. Yesterday it was there in news. Is it a UPI movement for the insurance sector? So, So Bima, first of all, what is Bima Sugam? So Bima Sugam is insurance, of course, making insurance accessible, Sugam. So this is a web portal being created by the IRDAI. It's a portal being created by IRDAI where all stakeholders concerning with the insurance sector would be there. So it is kind of a marketplace wherein consumers can interact. Imagine Policy Bazaar, but Policy Bazaar where the different policies are listed, customers can choose which to take from. So imagine that is being now run by the IRDAI. So it's something like that. So this is for the insurance sector. So that's it. Government to discuss transition timelines, consent mechanism with industry. This is about the Data Protection Act. Okay. So this is the Deloitte website from where I've taken the key provisions of the Data Protection Act. You can get it from anywhere, by the way. So Digital Data Protection Act, this became a law in 2023, right? And this basically provides for safeguards regarding data, how the data is, first of all, what are the rights and obligations of the data principals, the people whose data has been taken, me and you who are using social media sector. So that next, so data principles, data fiduciaries. So data fiduciaries and data processors. So people who are taking your data and people who are processing the data. So imagine a case where you are making an account with the Facebook or any other social media. So the fiduciary is the people who have taken your data for providing you a service. So this fiduciary has an obligation, right? There are certain obligations of the fiduciary as well as the people who are processing your data for whatever reason. So the obligations of the fiduciaries have been defined. It defines who's the data principal, what are their rights, what are the obligations. Likewise for the data fiduciaries and principals. So first of all, definitions plus their rights and obligations are defined. So yeah, so they have to comply with some regulations that are created. Simple as that. So this provides for disclosures, consent, for example, children are accessing internet for maybe for legitimate use, whose consent is required, parents' consent, what arrangement would be there. So these things. Now coming back. Now this says that, okay, there shall be a consent. The law is basically providing us broad contours. Now finer details will be decided by the executive, by the government. Parliament has said, okay, fine, these are the things that have to be there, but finer details have to be still made in, still have to be decided. So the government is in talks with the industry to know what are their concerns, how much of it can be implemented. So all those discussions are to take place. In case of wrongdoing, the fine is 250 crores. Next, government may soon tweak PLI schemes for 3 sectors. So these 3 sectors are drones, pharma, and technical textiles. So let me again explain the PLI, Production Linked Incentive Scheme. So government, first of all, it's the government which announces a scheme. So government has brought in a scheme known as Production Linked Incentive Scheme for certain sunrise sector. So areas where India wants to focus, like semiconductor manufacturing, geotextiles, drone manufacturing, etc. So they say that the government says that we will give you subsidy. We will give you good amount of subsidy. Right. So under this PLI scheme. So, but there is the thing. The companies first have to register with the government under the PLI scheme. Not everybody is going to get the subsidy, only those companies who have been approved by the government. Now, this means that it is not for startups or anything. Big companies from foreign countries may also come. Okay. So how do they get subsidies? The companies will make their sales as normally they do it. So the sales accrue leads to revenues, right? So sales is a function of production and to selling price. So that much amount is the revenue that is created. So based on the revenue that is created, the government gives them subsidy. So subsidizes it. So it is not market distorting. It is not, government is not distorting the prices. So it is giving subsidy on the total sales that have been made. But at the same time, it is compensating the companies. And this has been quite a bit of a hit, success. So now for drones, what they are doing is they are trying to bring in more clarity with respect to categories, for example, armed drones, personal drones, camera drones, whatever. So that is there. Then so that they are working, then more allocation, more funding to be provided, subsidy. For textiles, they are working on adding more categories of technical textiles. So that is being added. Likewise, there is for pharma sector. Okay, next, pension outgo may rise to over 17 lakh crores under old pension scheme as against 4 lakh crore for new pension scheme. Now, I would like to tell you one thing. In one of the prelims, a question was asked as to who all, I think it was 2017, who all are eligible for the national pension scheme. So such, finer question, and the options were like any citizen of India, resident of India. So like these options were there. So you need to look at the finer details. So first, let me cover this. Then you must have already seen I have the link for the new pension scheme as well. So we'll discuss the features quickly. Okay, so basic thing is that state governments, especially the non-Congress states, so they have said that they are reverting from the NPS to old pension scheme. So RBI has raised concern about this, the shifting. They are saying that this will lead to fiscal concerns. More money will have to be given by the governments to the employees in the form of pension. The old pension scheme said that whatever was the last drawn salary of, so 50% of that would be the pension amount given monthly, and the entire cost would be borne by the government. Under the new pension scheme, it is partly borne by, it is basically a function of the citizens' contribution to the scheme. So through the years, the citizens keep contributing and the employees keep contributing, and on that basis, they get the pension. Right. So obviously there is the fiscal concern regarding this. Now let us look at the key provisions of the national pension new pension scheme. Here it reads, any person between 18 to 60 years can invest. And here it reads, any citizen in the 18 to 60 years age bracket can participate. I wasn't expecting it. I just read this one. Now I'm reading any person. So we have to cross check this now. Okay, so this is there. Now the new pension scheme provides for flexibility, like investors are putting their money. Now, where do they want to park? Do they want to park in equity linked, more equity, less equity, safer options? So that option is provided to them. Further, if they want tax benefits, they can put it in a scheme where there is a lock-in option where they cannot remove the money. Right. So if they want less flexibility, in that case, tax benefits will also not be there. So that's it.